Hello, Craig.
It's all on you, it's all on me. Can't you see? It's all on you, it's all on me. You and me, can't you? It's all on you, it's all on me.
Hey, Craig. Right or wrong, we don't care. Win or lose, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care. We don't
Hey, Jeff. We're back.
Hi.
We had a week hiatus.
Yeah.
A lot of shit going on, but it was a bye week, so we took a bye as well. Just following what the football team does, you know. But this is Podcast versus Everyone, episode 198. I am Craig Powers. With me, as usual, is Jeff Newser. And Jeff, I know it seems so long ago that WSU beat Oregon State, but we have not talked about it on the podcast yet. So I guess, you know, maybe we'll go too deep into it. People probably we don't have like those like post feelings yet, but from your perspective, you know, I was in Pullman, but from your perspective, what did that win tell us about Wazoo? And then maybe what Oregon State's next game told us about Wazoo, and what does it make you feel now, having beaten two teams like this going into the rest of the season, and how does that compare to maybe your expectations of this team before the season?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it feels fucking great. Like, it feels amazing. To be
Yeah, sorry, I asked you 8
ranked,
questions. Please answer.
Yeah,
all of them.
I mean, what? Yeah, please answer all of them. Please remember all of them, and then answer all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we now? 13, right?
Can't you tell
Up
I
to
used to be a
13.
journalist?
Yes. You know, I mean, that's obviously that's heights we haven't seen since 2018. It's kind of heights that our program has rarely reached, just in its history altogether. And to do it after 4 games is kind of insane. I mean, one thing that we've, you know, talked about in the past is, you know, one of the reasons why game day took so long to get to WC, and we'll talk about game day later. We're going to wait. We're going to hold off on that, but we're going to talk about that later. Different game day topic was, you know, trying to get them to Pullman, right? And, you know, the biggest obstacle we had is really, you know, pull momentum, right? Like, and pull momentum is this concept of, you know, where you aren't really ranked based off of what you actually do. You're ranked based off of where you started, essentially. And so,
Right.
you know, if you start ranked, then your likelihood of staying ranked, even if you lose, is pretty high. And then if you start unranked, you have to do a hell of a lot to get ranked. That's just kind of how it goes. And, you know, for WSU to, you know, jump into the rankings after 2 weeks, to get a bump from, you know, beating, you know, I want to say Oregon State was 14 at the time, right? So to get another bump from beating the 14th team and then getting another bump from just not playing, which, you know, the SEC has perfected. And we have now co-opted.
It seems the bump, because they actually passed some teams, like they passed North Carolina, despite North Carolina not losing. I think it was really like Oregon State against Utah was like what they did to Utah. People are like, oh wait, maybe WSU is good because they beat that team.
Yeah.
You know, they scored 30, you know, however 38 points against that team.
38
like
points, yeah. And Utah could score 7, right? They scored 7,
and UCLA
so, you know,
has scored 7 or against Utah. So it's like just,
for Oregon State to do that to the number 10 team, you kind of start getting this, you know, transitive stuff as people try to figure out, you know, how good teams really are. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, to soar that high after such a short period of time is really kind of crazy. Like that doesn't happen very often. I think there was, the one time in Leach where we went down and lost to Cal. I don't remember what we were ranked that game, but we were pretty high. We were like 15 or something. Eighth. Okay, so we were 8th in that game. That's right.
Because it was after beating USC at home and then beating Oregon.
Right. Yep, that's right. So, yeah, it's typically pretty hard for us to get up that high and to soar that high after starting unranked. Like that's pretty much unheard of. The years like that year we were just talking about, I think we definitely started the year in the top 25. So, moving up like that was not super crazy. This time, like the schedule kind of broke our way, right? We played a top 20 Wisconsin team. We played a top 15 Oregon State team, beat them both. For anybody who watched the games, beat them both a little, perhaps a little more convincingly than the score would indicate. I mean, Oregon State, really the only thing that stopped our offense was us, right? A couple of turnovers, particularly in the first half. And then, the fourth quarter was really about just sort of managing it, which, you have a 10-point lead with, whatever it is, 6 minutes to go or something. Like you're not really trying to score again. You're kind of trying to milk the clock, which they did a good job of. Drove deep, went for it on fourth down from, 4th and goal at the 1 that would have, made it back up to a 17-point game or whatever at that point. Like, because the field goal does you no good. Like, I just think Dicker did a really good job managing that game down the stretch, and that, we were better than it looks. And you and I have both looked at, some of the models out there for, ranking, projecting, things like that. And, when you just take those 4 games into account, WSU is a top 10 team. Like, this isn't fake. This isn't fluky. Like, some of the systems don't like us 100% yet because they still have preseason projections baked in, which, there's merit to that, at least analytically. But still, it's like, if you just look at the 4 games, we're a top 10 team. It's been really impressive and super fun.
Well, if you look at like SP Plus, I think WSU started in the 40s, and they're up to last I looked to 20, I think.
And that's with the preseason still baked in.
With the preseason still baked in, and I think they were 9 when he always says the raw, like without the preseason projections, and that's 9. So they're playing as well as a top 10 team so far, and that's all what else can you ask for? Of course, WSU is always going to be dinged in those preseason projections because they bake in recruiting. WSU quite often overperforms its recruiting. Obviously, they bake in what happened last year. They bake in the turnover. WSU had quite a lot of turnover.
Number of returning players.
WSU lost a lot of offense, obviously, with the receivers, and but obviously we're seeing we got to talk about Josh Kelley, man. Like, that was one of the greatest wide receiver games I've ever seen from it, especially when you consider the defense that they were playing. Like, just one of the greatest games I've ever seen a WSU wide receiver have. Like, he was just incredible. Like, he made 3 absolutely incredible plays. Like, that you just like 3 insane plays, 2 diving catches, 1 for a touchdown, and then 1 where he made like half of Oregon State's defense run into each other and spun away and broke away for a long touchdown. Like, he was just absolutely incredible day. And he honestly, he's damn close to his numbers at Fresno last year. Like, already. He's on fire. And this is after they lose Lincoln Victor early in the game. And he and Kyle Williams just stepped up and had massive games. Obviously, Kyle Williams getting that, what a way to start, like getting that touchdown. Like, Oregon State just lost track of him. And WSU usually doesn't throw to that route on that route tree.
Yeah,
but they just did it.
You were obviously in the stands, so you weren't watching the broadcast. On the broadcast, they pointed out like that route is it was Helfrich, I think, said, look, this is not a throw for touchdown route. This is a run off the safety route, so that it opens up for the receivers underneath. and nobody went with him. And he's like, actually, that's not as easy of a throw as you think, because quarterbacks just get so like it's just really easy to get trained to think, oh, this is just the runoff route, and really not actually look at it. Like, just go, okay, he's going to run off the safety. I'm looking for these guys underneath. And he's like, to recognize that the safety didn't carry and this guy was wide open, like that was a really nice piece of quarterbacking. I thought that was, kind of nice to have an analyst on TV say something salient.
Yeah, and I wonder if there was something in tape that they spotted, that Cam spotted, that the quarterback coaches spotted, that said, hey, if they show this action pre-snap, they're not like, the safety's gonna stay shallow, and they're not gonna carry the receiver, or maybe sometimes they fuck this up, they fuck up this exchange, and because like it's incredible, like how Cam spotted that so quickly.
Yep.
Like it, because that there was no way that Kyle Williams should have been that open. Like there's no way. And on the second play of the game, it was so cool. What a way to get the crowd rolling. Just like, again, we've talked about the preparation of this coaching staff and these players. And again, in a big game, they just come out and they just punch the other team in the mouth right away. Like WSU builds another big lead again. And just like, it's just, they've had 4 games. The one that took them a while to get going was Colorado State. I mean, it's kind of forgivable. It's the first damn game of the season on the road. But then when they got going, they built a massive lead. And then they come out, punch Wisconsin in the mouth. They come out, score 9 touchdowns in a row against Northern Colorado, and then they come out and they build a huge first half lead against Oregon State, and so it's just it's so impressive. And again, Oregon State's defense is really good, and they absolutely shredded them. Yeah,
well, and you talked about the 9 straight touchdowns against Northern Arizona. Well, then we started this game with 3 straight touchdowns. The only touchdown we didn't get against Northern Arizona was the 10th
Northern
drive.
Colorado,
right, or Northern Colorado. I mean, was the 10th drive with goal to go. So we went 9 out of 10 there. We went touchdown, first 3 drives. And then it was fumble. And again, on both of those, we were, I can't say that about the 5th drive, but on the 4th drive, the first fumble, it was 4 plays, 59 yards before the fumble. Like we were scorching down the field again.
The fumble was on a first down pass. Like it was going to be a first down that he fumbled on.
Yep. And then the next one was, maybe not great because, only had gone 4 plays, 4 yards, and, there was some pressure there. But then, again, you score a touchdown, on the next drive. So, and that's how they ended the first half. It was touchdown, fumble, touchdown, which is like, holy shit. And like Utah's offense, I think everybody knows that offense kind of has some problems, without their starting quarterback. But, Oregon State absolutely, eviscerated them, smothered them. And we made it look like super easy, super duper easy, which is both incredible because of what Oregon State has done, but also incredible because of where this offense finished last year. Like it was a mess. And to do what they're doing right now is just like, it's so impressive. And I think sometimes maybe we take it a little bit for granted just because we've had so many good offenses and we're just like, that's what we do. But clearly it's not what we did last year. To be doing it again this year sure is hella fun.
I mean, they've played 2 very good defenses in Wisconsin and Oregon State, and they put up 24 offensive points against Wisconsin. They put up 38 offensive points against Oregon State. The Wisconsin game, more of a grind, but the Oregon State game, just the yardage they put up was crazy. Cam just seems to be getting better and better. It's nuts. Like he's getting so comfortable. Last year, it did seem like it was an adjustment for him to take that step up. But this year, he's adjusted. And you're talking about his last, like, against Oregon State's defense, he averaged almost 12 yards an attempt. Like, he basically was as efficient against Oregon State as he was against Northern Colorado.
Yep.
Like, that's crazy.
Yep.
And he had accuracy problems last year. He's 74.5% completion percentage. He's almost 10 yards an attempt on the season. 13 touchdowns, no picks. Like what an incredible start to the year. Very few times have you seen quarterbacks at WSU have starts this year. Maybe Connor Holloway 2014. Gardner took him a while to get going in 2018. Obviously, Anthony Gordon, and I don't know why I'm saying Green.
Yeah,
Anthony
that's
Gordon
probably the closest
2019.
one.
Yeah,
That's probably the closest.
but just the sheer efficiency, the big play ability is actually something that we rarely had under Leach. Almost never, I'd say. Like they make big plays routinely.
Yep.
It's a part of their offense, and it's just honestly something we've not had that frequently in the last 10 years.
We are currently averaging, after 4 games, 7.24 yards per play. So
That's
to
very
put that
good.
into context, for
There you
people
go.
who maybe don't have context for that kind of number. So let's think about last year. Okay, so this year we've got Colorado State 6.39, Wisconsin 4.81, which is pretty low. But then Northern Colorado 9.7, Oregon State 8.1. Okay, so if you're over, say, 6 yards of play, you're doing pretty good. Okay, so to be averaging 7.24 to put up 8.12 against Oregon State is just crazy. And just for context, last year's like terrible beatdown to Oregon State, we were at 4.97. Okay, so just a shade under 5, right? So huge change there. And then, you look at last year, we only exceeded 6 yards per play 3 times. That was Colorado State, and then Cal, and then Stanford, right? And we've already done it 3 times in the first 3 games, and we've exceeded 8 yards per play twice, which we did not do even once last year. So, it's pretty wild. If we look at the year before, we exceeded 8 yards per play 1 time. That was against Arizona. 2020, we're going to throw out. 2019, we had, of course, that crazy start. That's really the last time. So you were referencing that. We were 2019 with Anthony Gordon. It was 8.9 against New Mexico State, 10.4 against Northern Colorado, 7.3 against Houston, 8.78 against UCLA in that game that shall not be talked about anymore. That's really the last time that we had some to this, but this team, appears to have the defense that team did not have, which is like the kind of thing that gets you super excited, for the future. I was looking at one other quick thing. Tell me what you think about this. So ESPN does their they've got their FPI measurement, right? But they've also got a resumé measurement, which is basically what they call it as strength of record, right? So like the chance that an average top 25 team would have that team's record or better given the schedule. Basically just meaning like, it's basically just how well did you dominate your schedule, right? And we are currently ranked 6th in strengths of schedule. So here's your top 10 if you want to kind of think about, just like ruminate on this just a little bit. Texas number 1, no surprise there. Florida State number 2, not a shock there. Ohio State number 3, no shock there. Oklahoma number 4. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the company we're keeping. And then, of course, number 5 is whatever, it's Washington. But number 6 is us. And then number 7 is Georgia, right? So like the number 1 team in the country is 7th in this strength of record, followed by Ole Miss, Missouri, and Penn State. Okay, so this is the company that we are keeping right now. And when you look at all the other stuff that, they kind of like bake into it, they'll kind of tell you, oh, this is what your FPI is, right? FPI is their basically their power rank, essentially, right? We're 38, and everybody around us is like 4, 10, 1, 2, 9, 7, 13, and it's like, like the only thing holding us back in the FPI is, like, again, the projections that are baked in. Like, it has nothing to do with how we've actually done. In fact, they also have another metric called game control. Game control is like, okay, here's how they say it. Reflects the chance that an average top 25 team would control games from start to end the way this team did, given the schedule. We're ranked 5th in that. That basically means, like, we are controlling these games. We've led every game pretty much, I think, start to finish, right? I don't think we've trailed in any game this year. And
I think Colorado State got like a field goal to start the game.
Okay, maybe that's it.
Yeah,
Other
I think
than
that was it.
Other than that, like, we've controlled these games more or less from start to finish. It's pretty wild there. And then teams average in-game win probability rank. So we've talked about win probability, right? Where it's like, what are the odds you're going to win the game given the game state and the rest of the game that's left to play, right? The average in-game win probability, we are 3rd this year. So, like, basically, if you take all 4 of our games and look at what our win probability is at any point in the game and just average all that out, 3rd. So we've just, like, dominated. Now, 1st in all those metrics is fucking Washington. But that should track, right? If any of you listening have watched Washington at all, like, they've kind of obliterated everybody. We're right there with them in terms of what we have done. Now, their schedule's been much easier, so that's the difference. Our schedule's been much more difficult, and we are right there with them. This is honestly just sort of uncharted territory for us in a lot of ways.
And I think, like, a lot of, like, even the most optimistic fans, weren't seeing this team being this good this year. We knew a lot hinged on the improvement of Cam Ward. But the defense has improved too. Like, and we didn't really see that potentially because how many players they lost. But the step up of the edges even have been playing out of their minds, and the guys they brought in, it's just been, the secondary has been actually, we were hoping they'd be a strength, and they are. It's been it's been impressive. So one other ranking that is probably the most fun is, I don't know if you saw what would be the BCS rankings right now.
Yes, I did see that today.
So if we had the BCS, WSU would be ranked 3rd in the country. Miami, Texas, Wazoo. So it's wild. It's been a wild. You couldn't have expected a better start, and just to get that win against Oregon State in a game, and I'll talk a little about like, it was very, we had a like real brotherly feeling and a Pac-2, and we were all very nice to each other, but obviously both fans wanted to win the game. And I think it's kind of funny that, it was probably more of a positive atmosphere because WSU won the game. I was going around, any Beaver fan I'd see after the game, I'd be like, hey, we'll see you in Vegas. And they would smile. And, so there wasn't like it was probably like, if you were going to lose to anyone this year, each other was probably the one that was the easiest to swallow. Although we are Pac-2 champs, of course.
Of course, already.
But
make the
already.
trophy.
Yep. But yeah, it was definitely a different vibe than usual, especially for Pac-12 games. To be like, like, we're all just one big happy family here, and everyone was like, we were all like cheering each other on when we'd see each other in the tailgates and stuff. Although it's funny, there was some of the like in the tailgates, like, people were just wanting, a lot of WSU fans were happy to see Colorado lose, like, get their butts kicked. Like, and just because, like, it was like, please, can we stop with like the constant, like, unending attention on that program? But some of the Oregon State fans were like, come on, how could you root for Oregon? Come on.
Yeah.
Which fair, we would have been
They're
doing
like,
the same
wait a
thing
second.
If,
Yeah. If it was Washington,
yeah,
we'd be like,
exactly.
no, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, it was a cool vibe, and obviously a lot of fun. Like, I just to have weekends like that again in Pullman in this season. But now though, this is where the revenge tour truly starts, because we're 1-0 in Pac-12 play, but it's against our other cast-off friends. Like, now against UCLA, this is where the revenge tour starts, and these are where the games, I'm guessing, are going to get even saltier, much
Yes.
saltier, because now you're facing all the teams that have abandoned your conference and left you for dead, and this team you're playing this weekend was one of the first two to do it. So I guess we could switch to talking about UCLA coming up. UCLA is good. Like it, and they're not the team that I think people expected. It's their defense is really good, and their offense is so. It's
which is
very
weird,
interesting.
right?
Yeah, this is a Chip Kelley team. Like, and their defense is really good. Their offense so. The quarterback play has been really iffy. But yeah, they went into Utah and lost 14-7 and really only lost because they threw a pick six on the first play of the game. And Utah is a very tough place to win. And they went toe to toe. Every other game they've handled.
Yep.
They haven't played anyone crazy. They NC Central, San Diego State, Coastal Carolina. They beat San Diego State better than Oregon State did, and they did it on the road. I don't know if Oregon State did too. I think they were at home. This is another, again, WC's been playing a really good defense, like for the third out of 5 games. But it does give you hope because they just shredded the last one they played. And if we look at, and it also gives you hope because, again, WSU is facing a team that can run the ball, but has really, really struggled to throw the ball. And that is, like, this is the third time in 5 games they're playing a team that, it obviously, the way, Chip Kelly's style of running the ball it's like not exactly the same thing. But UCLA is definitely going to need to run the ball to move the ball, typically. And so this is the third time in 5 games that we're playing a team that's definitely going to be focused on moving the ball on the run, and a team where maybe you're just kind of happy with letting the quarterback beat you if they can. And that's it's interesting that the schedule has lined up like this. Just keep getting these teams that are very run oriented. But that's where we're at. And so UCLA is very good. They're very good at running the ball, but their pass offense not good. I mean, if you look at EPA per pass, they are 115th. Going by Stats of War on CFB graphs. Their success rate for passing 94th, while WSU's success rate against the pass 54th. Now WSU's success rate against the rush took a real hit against Oregon State, and that can give you some worry. Or UCLA's 18th in rushing success rate offensively. WSU now 91st in defensive success rate. That's what honestly what I'm most worried about is if the challenges WSU had stopping against the run against Oregon State actually come back to bite them against UCLA.
Yeah. I think so. I kind of go back and forth on this a little bit. On the one hand, I'm sort of like, I don't know, man. Oregon State. The thing about Oregon State is that they are just sort of a force of nature when it comes to running the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I don't know if that's the same with UCLA. I think UCLA wants to run the ball, and I think that was a thing that a lot of fans overlooked a bit when Chip Kelley was at Oregon. You know, because there would just be, you know, these explosive passing plays. You know, obviously you had Marcus Mariota. You know, that's a big deal, but they ran the ball, you know, really, really, really well, and he always does want to run the ball really, really well. I could see us having some issues, but also I don't know that we struggle in the same way that we did against Oregon State. And then, you know, against Oregon State too, it seemed like maybe we just were being a little aggressive in the first half. Second half was much better against the run. Of course, second half, Oregon State threw the ball quite a bit better. But again, I think some of that was game state. You know, it just seemed like we were kind of over pursuing in the first half. Lots of cutback lanes open. It was a little bit more of a challenge. And then, you know, they made some subtle adjustments on that in the second half. Not that Oregon State didn't run the ball in the second half, but it wasn't quite, you know, they weren't getting gashed every time a running back touched the ball, right? So, you know, I think that there was, you know, something there, you know, that they learned from it. And, you know, WSU still, you know, even for the issues they were having there, still came up with enough stops to make, or enough, they put Oregon State in enough passing downs, right? Like, you know, long yardage situations for the down that you're in, that they, you know, sort of forced Uiagalelei to carry them or at least make a play. And he just sort of showed over and over again that he couldn't. And I think UCLA, you know, may end up being in the same spot. And, you know, you mentioned like, hey, we've just been kind of on this run, but like, I mean, the Pac-12 has a lot of good quarterbacks, but college football is littered with bad quarterbacks. Like I think as a fan base sometimes overstate the level of play that teams get from quarterbacks because we just have really good ones all the time. Not every school gets that, right? Like Cal would kill right now to have any one of our last 10 quarterbacks, like right now, you know, because they just don't have anything, and they continue to not have anything. And there are lots of bad quarterbacks out there. So, you know, to say like, hey, you know, here we are, game 5, and we're playing another quarterback that's not great. Like, I mean, that's college football. You know, there are lots of bad quarterbacks out there. So, yeah, I think, you know, slow down the running attack, get off to a good start. I mean, I think part of the key here has been making teams play catch up against us. I think that is, you know, a big part of our success. And so, you know, I think the formula is right there. You know, get out ahead, you know, test their will to keep running the ball. I think Oregon State kind of broke on that a little bit to some degree. Like, you know, I think they felt the pressure a little bit. And where there were some spots where they really could have stuck with the running game, it's not that they abandoned it, but, you know, Jonathan Smith, you know, got a little cute. I mean, that 4th down play was the best example, right? Like, you know, you got 4th and 1, you're running up and down the field on us, and you try to get cute with a little like running back leak, and you're asking, you know, this big arm quarterback to throw a tiny little touch pass. It was very silly. And I think that there is something to that where, you know, you start getting a lead and the team starts feeling like they have to keep up. I think Wisconsin actually the reason why Wisconsin, I think, got as close as they did is because they kind of stuck to their thing. Like, they did not fall into the trap of like, okay, we have to try and catch up now. I feel like Oregon State did that a little bit. UCLA you definitely want to put the ball in the hands of the quarterback. And I think that's going to be, the game plan again is just, limit the big runs. UCLA has sort of made their hay with big explosive runs. If you can do, obviously I don't think our defense is as good as Utah's, but if you can, sort of, hold back a little bit, keep them from gashing you with huge plays, make the quarterback beat you. I like our chances again. And, it's interesting. We're a 3 or 4 point underdog, depending on where you look. So obviously there are some people who don't believe in what we're doing yet, but I don't know.
Stats of War believes in Wazoo, which is a very stark difference from last year because I think he had a data issue. It didn't include the Wisconsin game, I think. So the projections are always effed up, but it's nice to be able to have these success rate numbers and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be, Nikia had a decent time running the ball against Oregon State against a solid run defense. I'm curious if that's a product of, WSU getting shit together in the run game, or teams are so afraid of Cam Ward now that, if you run the ball, you have a better chance of success. That's what I'm wondering about there. Because actually UCLA's run defense is very, very good. First in EPA rush, 21st in rushing success rate. So I'm not expecting, but here's the thing, WSU has not needed the run game much so far. So this is going to be another one, I think, even more. They're going to have to make their way in the passing game. Maybe running through scrambles by Cam or whatever. But it should be an interesting one. I think UCLA is really good. UCLA is 17th in SP Plus. They're a fringe top 25 team. They can. I think they're good enough to beat almost anyone in this conference, and it's on the road. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is a great test, a great, WC's had some tests, but they've been at home. This is a great barometer at playing a really good team on the road. And, you're going to have another one in Oregon in a couple weeks after this, because that's what the Pac-12 conference is in its final season. It's just tough as shit. Even that homecoming game against Arizona is looking a little less easy than it did a few weeks ago. But yeah, so this is a tough game, but WSU's good. And I obviously I have to keep my string of what I've been doing, but I feel like they can make this a very close game. This will be a very close game, and it'll just come down to WSU doing what it has been doing in terms of taking control of games and making the other teams play catch up, like you said. So with that, Jeff, I think we can move to some predictions. I will, again, WSU's 4-0. I predicted first. So let's do this again. And then, of course, every game I've picked WSU to either lose or not cover. Of course, if they don't cover this time, they lose. What uses 3.5 as the spread. So I'll go UCLA 31, WSU 24.
Yeah. I am thinking that this maybe is I think it's maybe a bit of a low scoring game. The over under is set at right around 59. That feels too high to me. I don't know. Maybe I would feel differently if the game was in Pullman, playing on the road. A really good UCLA defense. I think there could be some, traction there that they are able to get against us that other teams have not. And then, UCLA's offense, as we've seen, is not great. So I'm thinking something relatively low scoring, maybe something 24-21 WSU, something like that.
All right. 24-21
So,
WSU.
Yeah. Let's
Lock
go
it
with
in.
that. Lock it in.
Lock
Stone
it in.
cold lead pipe.
24-21. 31-24 UCLA. You all know what to do. If I get it wrong, I have not seen enough
That's right.
idiot gifs
I know.
this year.
What's up with
I
that?
need more idiot gifs.
Yeah. Make sure to at me on those too, so I can laugh along with you.
And one note to Wazoo, it's our friend Gingy's birthday. She will be down there rooting for you.
Oh.
So win that game for Gingy.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know what, and it's the last goddamn game at UCLA probably ever. So win that fucking game.
I agree.
So yeah, let's go do it. Yeah. So idiot gifts. Don't forget. But Jeff, before we move on to beer, something that makes me want to drink, truthfully, is this college game day bullshit.
Yeah.
And this fight.
Speaking of idiots,
Now,
right?
speaking of idiots, it started with the Corso stuff, but that seems squashed, honestly. Corso, Dickert took exception, and Ryan Leaf took exception, and Corso making a joke and then laughing about, and then the rest of the crew laughing about WSU and Oregon State being like the no one wants us bowl. And Dickert did think it was the no one watches us bowl, but now people have says no more. But the point was not different, regardless of what that word was. Which it's like kicking from a network that had played a huge role in no one wanting us. It was frustrating and such that like WSU is such a fabric of that show. Like and not because of anything they did, it's because of what WSU alumni did. They gave them a damn story that they can run and make it feel like their fucking TV show has culture. And then they still want to punch down on us. And so yeah, we punched back. Ryan Leaf did very well dictated, like articulating what made him angry about it. And then Dickert actually called Corso. And they apologize for maybe coming after him or whatever, but then ESPN, this professional loudmouth that they've hired, former punter, total clown, he has to come after and tell WSU. They show the flag on game day. He starts telling WSU fans to shut up. And he just why do we keep having their flag? Where's my West Virginia flag? Which is, I don't know if he actually doesn't understand how the flag gets there.
Not. I think he does not.
Like, because he seems to think that ESPN puts the flag up for us, for the WSU alums. He doesn't realize this insane logistical and process that requires money, like to ship this flag around the country. And I don't think he cares. I don't think he wants to know. I guarantee someone has told him. No, someone has told him, no, they bring that flag. We don't put it on for them. They bring that flag.
But he didn't.
Just doesn't
but
care.
he didn't know it. He didn't know it last week. He
obviously didn't know it. And how he talked on his podcast this week, he still doesn't seem to know. Yeah, or he just wants to stir the pot, and it's just annoying.
I think it's some of both. It's some of both. He's, like you said. I think you put it perfectly. At this point, he's a professional loudmouth. His clout comes from getting another professional loudmouth, Aaron Rodgers, to come on his podcast, right? Like he's the worst of the worst when it comes to this kind of stuff. And so he shouts, he yells, he tries to be provocative. And obviously he was on this, right? And he hit a chord with us, and it was like, it makes us angry. And I think what makes us angry is number one, like as you mentioned, it's punching down, right? Like, you're big ESPN and you're gonna like yell at a couple of schools that had nothing to do with anything other than just, trying to be like what they are. Like it's like it makes no sense, right?
And diminishing what
yell
was
at that target.
actually diminishing like what was actually a pretty kind of incredible game that was happening
Right.
in this year, like the first time
Right.
they've both
Right.
been ranked. Like and you want to instead you want to like poke fun at the game and saying wow,
Right.
like these two teams don't care that they've been left behind. They are ready to fight and they're kicking the shit out of everyone. But no, like we've got to punch down on them. And then,
right, but they end up looking like they can end up looking like the bad guy in that, right? Which is why they were never coming to Pullman for that game. Even if maybe it in another weekend, right? Like a non, whatever Ohio State Notre Dame weekend or whatever that, maybe that's different. But beyond that, like they're not gonna, be like, oh, look at these plucky schools and they're in this position because of us, right? Like, I mean, they're not going to do that. And so, but they don't have to do what they've done. And, look, I mean, the part that got me was like, we're not your punchline. This isn't your punchline. Like, this is not a joke. And it's, if this was professional sports, things would be really different. Like if it's professional sports and you're getting screwed or whatever, your team's going to be bad. But it's like, look, in professional sports, they make sure that none of these owners can actually lose money, right? They make sure that none of these owners can actually lose their shorts. And they make sure that whatever it is, that's why those franchises always sell for more after you buy them, because it's impossible to lose money with the way these things are set up. Like you literally cannot, and you are protected and you can't fail. And that's why everybody wants to get into them. That's why everybody wants to like own them, because like you can't fail. It's literally rigged, right? We are in a spot where we didn't do anything wrong and we are now in the cold, right? Matt Brown, who writes his Extra Points newsletter, was talking about what's going on in Oregon right now. The Oregon State Legislature is sort of like doing some fact finding, trying to figure out what's going on, and can they do anything, and all the stuff that our legislature ought to be doing right now, but they're not. Basically asked for testimony from Oregon and Oregon State, and this is where the funny Oregon quote of, well, only 50% of our athletes won't see increased travel, and the most anyone else will miss after that is 6 extra days. It's like, wait a second, 6 days is a fucking lot. Like
6
that's a
days
lot
is
of
so
days,
many.
right?
On
That's
top of the
like
days they
you
are
had the
already
great
missing.
line. Yes, you had the great line there about like go find your professor and tell them you're just going to miss 6 days because the university doesn't think it's a big deal. Like,
Yeah,
exactly. It's just like it's insanity. But the other thing that Matt wrote in there that I think is the salient point, if you don't subscribe to Extra Points, and you're interested at all in sort of the wonky stuff about athletics, athletic director, athletic departments, things like that, that's the kind of stuff that he likes to cover. I think the more salient point for us in there was that the Oregon State president testified and included a projection of revenue going forward for them. And right now what they are projecting is a $40 million shortfall after leaving the Pac-12. And WSU, I'm sure, is projecting a similar kind of shortfall. And like, that's not a joke. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I know that College Gameday is all about having fun and celebrating college football and all this stuff, but you can't untether this stuff from the campuses. You just can't. And that kind of a shortfall is like, I mean, how do you make up for that? And in our case, we've got bonds, we've got debt that's got to be paid off. And you can't, I've said this before, but it's not like losing a job and you're like, oh, I can't afford this house anymore, I'm going to have to sell it. This ain't it. You can't sell it. You can't sell Martin Stadium. You're stuck. And, to turn into a punchline and be like, not just the, Nobody Wants Us Bowl. It'd be one thing if they had just said, oh, it's the Nobody Wants Us Bowl. Great. But it's the Nobody Wants Us Bowl. And then everybody starts laughing. It's like, we're not your joke. Like, this is like a real existential threat to the university. Like, this has very real repercussions, not just for the athletic department, but for the university as a whole. And if you can't see that, then you're a moron. And like, if you don't care, then you're a heartless asshole. And maybe you're both, but it's like, like, I mean, why? Like, why pick a fight, right here? Because why? Because it's funny, or because it's easy, or I mean, I don't know. But it sure is irritating, especially after, the celebration we had in 2018 and all the nice things that the game day folks said about us. Reese Davis keeps saying like Pullman was the best and whatever. Well, then fucking show it. Show it for once and, step up and be like, yeah, this isn't funny. But they can't, because the people they work for are the reason behind it.
Like Reese Davis saying to McAfee, like, oh, get to Pullman and they'll change your mind. It's like, we don't care about him. We don't want to change his mind on Wazoo. That does not matter to us. Like, he should want to win us over. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't care if Pat McAfee likes Wazoo. Like, that doesn't matter to me. He should just shut his fucking mouth. Like, because it's not funny. Like, and no one is on his side. Like, that's the fight. Like, no one is like, oh yeah, he's speaking the truth. Like, what truth is he speaking?
There are plenty of mouth breathers out there that think it's funny. Like, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's these, equally, like, loudmouth idiots that are like, oh yeah, it's so funny, Pat. You tell him. It's like,
I mean, that's how he's like risen in this career he's built after football.
Yeah, I mean, he's ESPN's Barstool, right? Like, I mean, that's what he is.
Wasn't he didn't he work for Barstool before ESPN?
Probably. He fits right in. Like, he's their bro. And it's like, look, I'm gonna be a loudmouth bro, and I'm gonna use all my unearned influence. You were a fucking punter. Like, I don't want to like diminish the fact that somebody made it to the NFL, because that's a really big accomplishment. But holy shit, you're a fucking punter. Like, I know that punters are supposed to shut up, and so he's like cosplaying like this role that he never got to play in his career, and like, look at how smart and loud I am. And it's like, I don't know, man. I have not liked him actually ever. Like, I've never seen the appeal.
I've never seen the appeal either.
Yeah, that was my and I know that like you guys, I know you have a picture with Pat McAfee from a bowl.
It's so funny when we got that picture. I was like, who did we just get a picture with? But obviously, I may have redoctored that picture a bit.
Yeah. I did see the modifications that you made, so I thought it was pretty good.
I was pretty proud of it. On the markup tool on your Apple phone. I thought I did a pretty good job.
Worked pretty well. For people who don't know, it involved some white paint over the face and some other red paint around.
It was a clown face, dude.
It was
careful with the white paint stuff.
Well, it was just like, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, anyway, yeah, it was. I don't get the attraction, but obviously somebody does, or he wouldn't be getting paid all the tens of millions of dollars that ESPN is paying him. And I mean, this is the world that ESPN has created. This is the world they want. They want. They have systematically removed any sort of smart discourse from their. And it's from their platform, and all the people who complained about all the political stuff and all the thoughtful stuff ESPN used to do, the go woke, go broke stuff. It's like, well, ESPN, believe it or not, has actually bought into that, and that's what happened. They've dumbed it down to nothing. They have fostered an environment in college football to homogenize it to the biggest brands. This is what they want. And, everybody else, if you're not one of those brands, then, you're getting left behind. And It's sad. The whole thing is sad. We've talked about how sad it is, and we probably don't need to talk about it anymore because we're having fun this year. But it is a bummer that ESPN, which has sort of championed for so long the culture at WSU and with college football and game day and everything else, is choosing this moment, to not just be like, yeah, we can see why they're sensitive. We're sorry we were jerks. It's like, I mean, that would be so easy to do. Just to be like, hey, yeah, you're right. Like, we probably shouldn't have made a joke about that. This is really shitty, But instead, they've continued to punch at us and Oregon State, and I don't know, man. Doesn't make any sense to me. But I think the idea is, hey, we can do this because they're going to go away, and maybe we're not going to go away. And I floated the idea maybe we should stop going to game day, which was shot down by lots and lots of people. So it's fine, I get it. But I'm also like, man, they benefit from our presence way more, honestly, more than we do. They're a TV show. They're making money off the presence of that flag. They sell Old Crimson, right? And everything that it represents.
It like legitimizes their whole like vibe. Like to have like, oh, people want to be here. This fan base follows us everywhere. Like that's how great our show is.
Yeah.
Like, and they've really made commercials about it, like and it's like
multiple.
They love it,
Yes,
and they can't stop talking about what they came to Pullman, It's but yeah, it's
our best. The best thing we've got going for us is that they may end up in Seattle in a couple of weeks.
Yep,
and if that happens, they are going to have a situation on their hands.
I don't see how they. I mean, they're not going to go to South Bend again, and it's not really going to make sense to go anywhere else.
Nope.
When you have two top 10 teams, a rivalry game, like they have to go to that game.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to have. If that happens, WSU is going to flood Red Square.
Yeah.
And it is going to be a situation. So. I don't know. I hope that
I will say. So I will say. I think Jake Dickert said the right thing in his latest press conference. It was just like, it's done. Like, let's just focus on the games now. Focus your energy on rooting for the Cougs because, I'm tired of this. I'm already tired of it. I just.
Yep.
I don't. No one's given. I mean, unless he wants to. Unless he's looking at his Twitter mentions, I guess, and he wants to fight back on that. No WSU person has given him any more ammo. So no WSU representative has given him any more ammo. It's because I don't think he's seeing my clown face post of him.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. But yeah. So hopefully it's just it's just done and I don't know, like I haven't really watched Game Day that much. Like people are like, oh, we like him on there. I'm like, I don't really know the difference because I don't really watch it. It's other than like the occasional, like I'll see like someone will repost like if they do a special thing or something, whatever. But otherwise, I wouldn't have seen that unless it didn't circulate on the internet. But yeah. But Jeff, again, thanks, Pat, for giving us a reason to drink. So I got to know, what are you drinking tonight?
Yeah, so this is the last of my beers that I picked up in Moscow, which is kind of what I've been drinking. This is the Boss Pour IPA from Abnormal Brewing in San Diego. I kind of liked it mostly because I like the name of it, Boss Pour. Like I don't know. If I was trying to make it like a theme with the game against Oregon State, I'd be like, we boss poured all over Oregon. I don't know, Oregon State. I'm still workshopping it, but yeah, it's a very West Coasty IPA. It is pretty good. It's got kind of the classic bitterness of a West Coast IPA. Fairly crisp and clear, and all that good stuff. So solid. I like it. If you're in the mood for just a legit IPA, a legit old school IPA, this is not a bad one.
Old school, isn't it a little bit hazy?
Like a tiny bit.
They may have changed it a bit then. Because Jeff,
Maybe.
what if I told you you've had this beer before?
Have I?
Well, I have. I just looked at my Untappd because I know I've had it before. They've actually
Okay, hold on.
every picture I have of it is different, different looking. It's very clear in one, but the one. So I checked into a location at Unterland's Taekwondo Academy in Graham. So I assume I was at your house.
Now I'm looking and I'm like, yes, I did check into it at some
But
point.
it looks like super hazy in this picture. And
I mean, I put my picture on. I put the picture on Twitter. If you want to look.
Yeah. But I think like they've had Abnormal has changed brewers a couple times, so I wouldn't be surprised if they've changed the recipe a few times.
This does not look like that.
Yeah.
Now
I've had it.
I'm looking at the picture from when was that? Hang on. This was April 2018. So 5+ years ago.
And then I have one that I had in August of 2016 on draft. It just looks completely clear. It looks like the beer that you are drinking right now.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, that's funny that because I heard it, I was like, I swear I may have shared that with Jeff at some point.
We did. We did share it.
Yeah, because I used to go to San Diego a bunch and bring like Abnormal back. I had a friend that used to work for. I have a friend that used to work for Abnormal, so we'd always hang out. She'd give me some beer and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've definitely changed the recipe on that for sure.
Yeah, they've changed brewers. They're the brewer that they kind of made their name with. Started a brewery in Sacramento that I cannot Moxa Brewing in Sacramento. That then they kind of changed a bit after that brewer left. But yeah, Abnormal.
This is funny looking back at your pictures on this.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at the one I'm looking at the one at my house and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's very like hazy. That almost looks like a Bodhi basically, like the one from 2018. And then I'm looking at the one from 2016 and that almost looks like, and then the one from 2016 almost looks like almost kind of amber in color, but very, very different. Yeah. Yeah. That's fast. That's hilarious actually. So yeah. All right. Boss Pour.
Yeah.
Woo.
Boss Pour. I am having a beer from Bizarro Brewing in Seattle, I guess it'd be Magnolia, where they were located. Just across the water from Ballard. It is Flowers of the Sky Fresh Hop Hazy Pale Ale. You know, fresh hop season is in full. It's just tons of fresh hops. I had a lot more. I took a bunch to the game. I had Amanda's parents came over, so I think her dad drank some of my fresh hops, which I told him he could, so that's fine. But yeah, I drank a lot of fresh hops at the Oregon State game. Still had some left over from that. But this is one of those fresh hop hazy pale ale, so it's 5%. You know, I'm not. You know, I don't always go for the hazies, but this is like pretty solid. The nice because it's a pale ale and non IPA. Sometimes the hazy IPAs, especially the doubles, get just like too sweet for me.
Yep.
But this one got a real nice body to it with the haziness and yeah, the nose is fantastic. Fresh Strata, Comet, and Galaxy. Good hops there. Really good beer. I've had quite a few beers from Bizarre. They're very new. I've been very impressed with them so far. I think they're kind of one of the best like up and coming breweries in Seattle right now. And you could get their cans a lot of places. At like beer stores type places. So I'd recommend checking them out. They're pretty solid, and this is a solid fresh hop. Love to drink the fresh hops and fest beers. It's that time of year. I don't really F with the pumpkin beers that much, but yeah. So Flowers of the Sky, Bizarre Brewing, Fresh Hop Hazy Pale. Go drink some fresh hops.
Yes.
All right, Jeff. Let's move on to our premier program right now, and that would be
no joke.
The 4th ranked Wazoo volleyball team.
Fourth.
And as we said when we opened with them 2 weeks ago, they have moved up the rankings by beating the teams above them and over again, including on Sunday again in 4 sets, beating a top 10 team in number 6 Oregon. So now, and even Oregon moved up in that rank. I think they're 5th now. So Oregon moved up after losing to Wazoo. So,
yep.
Yeah, or maybe they were 5th in a power ranking I saw. But yeah, like this stretch that they've had. You know, they easily took care of Oregon State as they should have. But to the stretch we talked about, you know, beating BYU, Baylor, Texas, and then now, you know, beating UW in there too, sweeping Oregon State, and then now beating another top 10 team in 4 sets. This one was, you know, the 2 of the sets were hard fought. They made an incredible comeback in the 4th set. They scored the last 6 points of the match to win. Like they were trailing. It was 23-19, and they won. They scored 6 in a row. Got on serve, 5 serves in a row, won to win. Just incredible stuff. Like I can't. This is just such an incredible run they're on. Like it's hard to fathom. Like how many big wins they just keep having, and just they're just proving that they're just better than these teams. Like they fully have earned this top 4 ranking. Like they fully have earned that. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. It's not a. There's no fluke. There's no like, oh, teams in front are losing. Like, I mean, they're beating teams. They are beating everyone. It's kind of insane, and they've been, you know, more or less, you know, pretty flawless while doing it too. It's not like they are sneaking by people, scooting by people, barely surviving. The only, you know, 5-set match they've had, you know, in all of this was against Arizona. And that was the first match after they beat Washington, which, you know, I think there's, you know, a little bit of an understandable, you know, a little bit of an understandable letdown there, right? Like, you know, you know, thump Washington at home, and then you go on the road, you know, to play Arizona, and that ends up, you know, closer than you would expect. And then, but they, you know, they end up winning. And then, you know, as you said, you know, they go up to Oregon, they beat Oregon State 3-0, they beat Oregon 3-1. You know, look very convincing doing both of those things. I mean, there's just nothing here to indicate that any of this is fluky. There's nothing here to indicate any of this is going to trail off. I mean, they've played, hang on, I'm going to look here really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of their last 6 games on the road. 5 of 6 games on the road. The only game in there at home was against Washington. Every other game, number 18 Baylor, win 3-1. Number 6 Texas, win 3-1. Arizona, win 3-2. Oregon State, win 3-0. Oregon, win 3-1. And now you're looking at a situation where the next 4 are at home. And none of those teams, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. One of those teams is ranked. And that would be, of course, the eternal nemesis, Stanford, this weekend. So hosting California on Friday, Stanford on Sunday.
And that's what sets up. You know, you got to take care of business against Cal, and you're talking a 3 versus 4 matchup.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, and we were talking about this. That might be the highest average ranking of any game that WSU has ever been involved in any sport.
The only one I can think of is maybe the Rose Bowl against Michigan, because Michigan was number 1, and I think we
That's
were 7. I think
That would be the
so that
be
would also be 3.5.
that would be 8.
No, that would be 4. That would be an average of
4.
4,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I
was
think
kinda
that
thinking
I
3.5
remember.
was the
I
midway
seem to
point.
remember WSU being 7 for that one.
Yeah, it was something like that. And then there would have been that football game against USC. I think both teams were top 5, but I think it was 4-5 or 4-6 or something.
It
Maybe
was.
both weren't
I
top
found
5.
that there was 3-6.
3-6,
In 2003,
3-6.
it was 3 versus 6.
Yeah.
So that's a 4.5. And then
Yeah.
there's the WSU UCLA basketball game at UCLA in 2008.
That's right.
And that was WSU 4, UCLA 5. So it's 4.5
Yep.
again.
Close.
So this
Yeah.
is just one of the biggest, and this is in Pullman.
Yep.
Like all these games we've talked about were not in Pullman. Like there's a top 5 matchup in Pullman on Sunday. Like that's nuts.
Yeah.
And WSU's got to be feeling like they could beat Stanford. They beat everyone. Other than
they're not gonna
Louisville,
be.
but that was at Louisville.
They're not going to be afraid of Stanford, not even a little.
Yeah. Like not even.
They're gonna.
I mean,
they're gonna absolutely feel like there's nobody that they can't play with. And they're right.
yeah.
And they're veteran. Like we've talked about that. Also, like the thing that really separates this team is that they are extremely veteran. They're not going to be afraid of Stanford, especially not at home. They're not going to be intimidated, and maybe that's the thing that puts them over the top is Stanford. I think in a lot of sports kind of gets by on, not that Stanford is intimidating just by like not that they're like raw, we're intimidating, but it's like just being Stanford. There's a certain arrogance and a certain air and that comes along with that, and and it can be intimidating. I mean, I think the soccer team fell victim to that this week. Not just Stanford, but USC, UCLA. We'll talk about that in a sec. But there can be a little bit of that. I don't think this group is gonna be feeling that at all. I think they're gonna feel like Stanford should be fearing us. They just seem like that kind of squad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, now you mentioned they've played so many on the road. They now have 6 of their next 8 at home. Sandwiched by a trip to LA to face USC, UCLA. But yeah, they're in the thick of this. Like, if you're gonna go win a conference championship, this is a huge weekend.
Yeah,
This is a huge weekend. If you're gonna go get a top seed, this is a huge weekend. Because Stanford is a nice measuring stick, and Stanford's going to be probably the other team you're fighting for that conference title, and not a WSU team to win a conference like regular season title is
been a long time.
Been a long time. Football has co-champed a couple times. It's been a long time. So yeah, huge matchup on Sunday. Got to take care of business against Cal. But yeah, huge matchup. 3 versus 4. That's just fucking mind-boggling. So, and if they win, who knows where they'll be ranked. So very cool stuff. Move on to soccer. They are, as the kids say, down bad right now. I saw Jamie Vinnick post. So just to say, they lost at home to it since we've last podcasted to USC and UCLA at home, 1-2 and 0-2. They are now. I give credit to Jamie again for citing this of Coug fan. 0-9-2 in their last 11 Pac-12 matches.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's really bad. especially from a program that has had such high standards.
Yep.
And I honestly, they've had injuries. They don't have their full squad, but yeah, and they've had a really, it was all UCLA, Stanford, or USC, very good teams. Like that's going to be their toughest stretch of the year by far. Things get easier, except that they're on the road. Most of these games are on the road, but the teams will be easier, but they're all on the road going forward. Other than 2, they have 6 of 8. They're the reverse of the volleyball team. They have 6 of their last 8 on the road, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 0-9-2 in your last Pac-12. Like that's to not have won a Pac-12 game in the last 11 from what this program has been.
Yep.
It was just nuts to see that stat. You felt it, but just to see it, like that's crazy.
Yeah. They're struggling so bad on offense right now. And it might be easy to point to the defense and be like, well, they gave up 2 to UCLA, they gave up 2 to USC, they gave up, just the one against Stanford. And honestly, of those 3 games, so I didn't watch really any of UCLA. I watched almost all of USC. I watched almost all of Stanford. So probably the game they battled the hardest and played the best was Stanford, and that was the game they lost 0-1. That was really a pretty even match overall.
Yep.
USC, not an even match overall. Very fortunate to only lose 2-1 in that game. They could have very easily given up 4 or 5 or even maybe 6 goals. Like USC was just like, for really the last, I want to say about 60 minutes of the game, USC was just all over them. And then UCLA, of course, they got down very early against UCLA. I know that. And then just never really mounted much of a comeback there. To give up 5 goals in 3 games against, those teams might make you think, oh, wow, the defense is really struggling. I mean, the defense is probably struggling a bit, but their biggest issue is that they just, it's part of playing defense is being able to possess the ball a little bit offensively.
Yes.
Defending all the time is not a great recipe. And they just don't, with all the injuries they've had, and it's, last year was kind of a dysfunctional mess. We talked about that at length last year. This is not a dysfunctional mess. They're just hurt. Like they are missing people all over the place. And, the game against USC, I was really struck by the fact that their offense really just consisted of direct balls. They were really trying to hit Margie DeTrizio, with direct passes, either long passes with her maybe trying to get in behind, or direct passes to her where she can, try and hold up the play. But even then, she wasn't really generally seeming to try and hold up the play. It seemed like she was, trying to get a touch and then turn and go and use her athleticism to get an advantage, which, sometimes works. But man, she was just like kind of out on an island the whole game. Some of that again was game state. WSU led 1-0, for a long time against USC before it kind of fell apart. But some of that was they just didn't have a lot of ideas for creatively playing, with a buildup. And they've always been kind of a direct, a little bit more of a brute force kind of team. They kind of pummel you into submission with shots, plethora of shots. They're just going to shoot and shoot and shoot. And then their hope is that they're either going to get you with a strike or they're going to, pick up something sloppy in the box, because your keeper doesn't handle a ball, whatever. They just don't have that right now. They're not able to really do any kind of build up. They're not able to play the ball into dangerous spots with, any kind of, like I keep saying, any kind of build up, right? Where, multiple players have to, maybe you string together 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 passes in a row. They're just not able to do that right now. So I don't know what their prospects are for getting healthy. The coverage on the team is pretty sparse, in general. But I do know, they're missing midfielders. They're missing, one of their best forwards in Grayson Lynch. It's real hard to defend if you never really are able to stay on the ball, and that's where they find themselves right now. So hopefully, maybe this is all being overblown just because they had a real tough stretch of teams. But I don't know. This road trip through Arizona, I think, is going to tell us a lot about where they're at right now, and whether we can expect things to maybe get start turning up with some very beatable teams coming up. I mean, look, their next 6 games, I don't believe any of their next 6 opponents are ranked. Maybe even 7 opponents, I'm not positive. So because the WSU website doesn't show ranking until they play the game, but these are all very winnable games. Hopefully they can figure out a way to be effective even with all the injuries they've had. And that's a very classic WSU thing, right? Like, we typically don't have the depth. We can have high end players, but if we have some ill-timed injuries to some of those high end players, we typically don't have the depth to sustain that. And that's WSU is just there is depth of talent, but it's very young, very, very, very young, and it's maybe not quite ready for what's being asked of them.
Yep, and let's pour one out for WSU being able to say that they're one of only 3 programs in the entire country to have soccer, volleyball, and football ranked, because WSU didn't even get a vote in the poll this week, so they have officially dropped out.
Sad day.
Bummer. But maybe let's go on a run in these next.
I mean, at this point, we ought to
pop back in.
We ought to be worrying about making the tournament at this point. Like we got to do enough. We got to do enough over these last 8 games to make sure that we get in the tournament. Like, that's the concern right now. Missing the tournament for a second year in a row would be a real issue.
It seems like you'd have to do a lot in the last 8 games to.
I don't know. I mean, they built up quite a bit of equity. I mean, they're 7-4 overall. The 3 games they lost, you could go, okay, so they're not on the level of Stanford, USC, UCLA. But you cannot be on that level and still be a tournament team. But they need to separate themselves from, the teams they're playing over these last 8. Arizona State, Colorado, Utah, Oregon State, Oregon, Washington. I mean, those are teams that, if you are, a NCAA tournament team, if that's what you're trying to do, those are the teams you need to separate yourself from a little bit.
Yep. So we'll follow that. But yeah, I guess that's all we have for today. But Jeff, as always, plug that Substack for them folks that want to get the podcast early.
Podcast versus everyone.substack.com, and it's podcast vs everyone.substack.com. You subscribe there, you get the podcast first, especially if we have an issue with the feed like we did with the last episode. It took me about a day to sort that out, but as long as you are subscribed with the newsletter, you will get that first, and then it'll hit the feed at some point later. And who knows? Maybe I'll write. I keep saying this. Maybe I'll write something. I just haven't really been in the mood to find the time to write something. So I don't know. Maybe I will.
Yeah, and if you're into the social medias, at Craig or at the Craig Powers on Twitter, for me at Pod versus Everyone or whatever X, whatever the fuck it's called, for Jeff.
Yeah. It'll always be Twitter to me.
Yep. And then if you like my concert recaps, of which there'll be several this week, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Craig W. Powers. And I do too. If I go to Pullman, I usually make a little recap video of that. So those are fun. But yeah, we're on Blue Sky, craigpowers.bsky.social, whatever it is, and Jeff is Noose
Coug.
or is that noosecoog.bsky or whatever. Very easy to say on a podcast to plug your Blue Sky account. But yeah, hopefully, eventually we'll just get in the rhythm of posting over there as X dies or something. I don't know, or just gets too annoying. Or maybe they start charging us to post. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully we'll have stockpiled some invites by then. We can bring some of y'all along. But yeah, Jeff, I guess after all that, I guess we just have to say go fucking Cougs.
Go fucking Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Get vaccinated.
Yep.
Even your pets.
Even your pets.
And join a union.
Or just support them generally.
Thank you. Do both.